The story of the film takes place in the desert with Master Chalk. He was running at all speed to join the teacher Wan Ni Chowera, the teacher of the school. The Art of the Serpent. While Wan was the director of the Higla Yell School. Between the two schools of struggle and a violent hostility and the goal of face. Chow faced John and did not tell him he had killed more. 3,000 students cooled and that their goal was to eliminate it and the gospel at the same time. That John will declare that his mission was to destroy the art of the serpent throughout the country for. Let the art of the Higla dominate all the schools and then the struggle begins between them and from. In the first moment, the strength of the two men was destructive and almost equal. This has rejected John using the art of the serpent and managed to take the advantage during just a few seconds. But John took full control of the battle and succeeded to defeat Chow with deadly techniques and before killing him in the last moments. Chow tells him he had a friend named Bai Qi also was a master of the serpent art. And that he would defend that art even at the price of his life, and then John was angry. And he decided to look for Bai Qi to kill him. The story then goes to his friend. From the master Chow, who is the master Bai Qi was the last master of the serpent art. In the country and of which no one knew anything and slept deeply when two men. They entered his house to ask him to rent the place under the penalty of passing him to the tobacco. The old Bai had no money, so he tries to run with the two men until that. He went out of the place but found a group of fighters he was waiting for. To remove them, and he thought he was weak because he was old and he didn't. I didn't know the vote that he was one of the world's most powerful martial art teachers. Then the old Bai captured them and put him down one after another and made them hit between them as idiots and then escaped quickly without paying the rental, and then the story. From the film he took us to a martial arts school where a young orphanage called the Work Chain. As a home man and was alone and had no friends in school. They were training while the chain wanted to train like them but could not pay the school registration expenses due to their poverty, then began to imitate his movement from far and felt joy and pleasure, and suddenly the teacher of the school. He would love life and decided to break his joy approaching behind him in secret, and then he hit him with great brutality until he fell on his face and accused him of negligence and insult cruelty, then pressed his foot in the flour bag and he fell to the ground and began to sweat the ground deliberately to force the poor chain cleaning in front of all the students, and Chain had no other option than obeying him, and that he was cleaned behind him because if he refused to do it would be thrown into the street, and after that he and stretched out of him and fight insulted told him that he did not serve for anything in this place. He went out to the court and asked the students not to forget to pay the registration expenses in school so that I could train them, and in reality it was a scrot because not. They didn't control in the struggle or the conflict, but he wanted to show him his strength and called the Chain to fight against the front of them and show them that he was able to hit anyone who chose, and then ordered the Chain not to defend himself, so the Chain was forced that they thing to suffer the strikes and insults while the first began to hit the impotents, and then the Chain fled before his companions and ran away from the place and continued to cry. For there was no one who loved him, and everyone laughed at him and laughed at him. At the same time, after the master dancing escaped quite pursued, he decided to make one. In the Finge school, inside this school the city's judge was. He was present and wanted his son to be trained to armari, and the son of the judge was called. And he lived in great comfort and didn't know anything of fatigue or suffering, and then Finge. He declared before the judge that his school was the country's best armarish school, and that no one could defeat his students when he told him he had heard saying that the students of the school broke the shark with his hands and asked him to see it for himself. He asked the strongest students of the school to bring the shark in before Coin hit them. She stopped and increased the number of tubes, and at that time the judge and his son discovered that they were. The school officials were the only slaves, and then left the place at all speed. He tried to stop them and his look fell to the master, dancing slept calmly, and he ordered his students to hit him and throw him out of the place, and he didn't know a step that was. He refused it despite his number. Coin walked on the road and saw that they were attacked A silver menton decided to intervene and defend him even though he does not have any competition. Marshall and that can be hit easily, and in fact students get worse in coin and he. Suddenly and the crater against the ground, and at that time the dancing master put angry today. She decided to control Coin's movements as if she was a marionette and use her body to destroy the enemies. Coin began fighting them with an unprecedented ferocity. Without possession of true martial skill, and all this thanks to the old dance, and look at the students. It was fighting and leaving the place in peace. Coin then decided to add dance to his life. As a friend inviting him in the backyard of the school and approached there and offered him this. Bei asked Coin to tell him about his life and discovered it. He lived in this place since his childhood and that everyone in school treated him as one idiot and a dead, and at that time Coin's friend at school came and asked him to get to know him. The school director read, and when Coin found the teacher read, he found the judge and his son looking at. He wanted to show the judge that his school was very strong and unequal in martial arts for. He convinced him to enroll his son in the school and therefore ordered Coin to receive the hearing without resistance, and unfortunately this happened for the second time when one of the students took Coin. He attacked him in front of all and humiliated him cruelly as the judge and his son looked at him. What happened, and when the judge saw this scene he decided to enroll his son in the school. Thinking that the training was real and didn't understand that Coin was just a victim used for humiliation, then Coin returned to the rear court extremely sad, and his father, where the one who served his father tried to know the reason of his sadness, but Coin's companion told Bei's master that he used it box as a target for listening. Then Bei decided to take it to the room, and when the sad wind began to play with him and run before the probation to get out of him from his state of sadness, and in fact Coin was very happy, and then Bei proposed a challenge with him, where the chain would win if it captured the chain. Then the chain ran towards trying to capture it. 7 But Bei was as fast as the lightning because it used the fighting style of the serpent so much. He says Coin just thought of playing because he had finally found a friend to have fun with him. Finally Coin managed to capture the chair and was full of happiness, and at night did cold, and when his father saw him tremendously cold he gave him the cover he had for that. It may be hot. With the next morning Coin woke up and began to look for Bei, but he discovered that he had left the place, and then saw words written on the wall explaining them. Basic instructions of the art movements of the serpent with combat movements through the which he could defend himself, and at the beginning Coin didn't understand anything, and when he went out to the courtyard he went surprised to find instructions drawn on the ground that explain how to apply your fighting movements with mastery, and then decided to try to teach them and remembered their instructions. They were far from the same guns movements that Bei carried out when he played with the then Coin. Followed step by step, and over time he acquired excellent skills in the art of the serpent and master of the incredible acrobatics. At the same time Bei fell into a mortal trap and went attacked by a dependent murderer from the Lafley school led by the teacher Guani Bei. He left. Then the murderer turned to him at a Bulgarian speed. The art of the serpent was the only art capable of defeating the art. But Bei's concentration was not total, and then another man surprised him behind and the knife with a cut weapon and almost kills it, and before ending with the Bei escapes from the place to the speed of the light, and at the same time in the school of the teacher and the judge. With his son Guaya wanted to test his son's fighting skills, and the school director Li followed immediately that he was going to call to be hit without resistance, then choose another. Once chains as the target of the fight and the confrontation begins, the son of the judge was convinced that the chains were weak and unable to defend themselves, but I didn't know I had learned some self-decent skills. Don't Neagle takes the yes. Suddenly the chains came out of your silence, and the test exploded in a volcano of anger and fell over the son of the judge with violent strikes and made him appear and Diota before everyone, and the students were surprised because he thought the chains were stupid, and I didn't know anything about the struggle when it had become very strong. And when the judge looked at what had happened, he takes his son and leaves the school, and then the master Milk puts himself in front of the chains and tells him that He would not receive food that day, and Chains felt an intense anger, but fear of facing her and escapes from the place at all speeds, and on the way of Chains he comes. The teacher was seriously wounded by a wound that could cost him life at any time, so he decided. He helped him and began to learn how to take care of the state of yours was devastated due to the wounds, and Chains didn't know what to do and was very disappointed and finally decided. He fueled in the school to collect some herbs and make a remedy for the liquid. Wake up all night to prepare the medicine and, fortunately, when you took the medicine your state. It began to improve until it was good, and at that time Bilted realized that. Now he had a true friend willing to sacrifice for him, so he decided to teach. Start the fighting style of the serpent so that it becomes strong and capable of destroying everything. No one stood up on his way, and the Chains accept immediately because it was an opportunity for. Don't miss yourself, and the next day you'll start teaching him how to move and use them. Movements of the art of the serpent with the domination at the beginning of the Chains was completely zero, and he was difficult to learn, but with time he used to the movement and built up. It is enough to follow a hard workout to increase your physical condition and your strength. He made bombs on his lower fingers of the inflamed wooden buttons, and the Chains did not endure. Let you ask it easily, but continue despite all the difficulties you face, and after a time reached a level and a terrible speed, and the master built was convinced that it became prepared for the serpent style that is based on accuracy and fast attacks. Surprise against the opponent and throw the control in an impressive way, and the next day. As the Chains cleaned the school, the teacher read life and decided to bother him, covering his own foot flour and trying to sweat the ground again, but it was surprised to see that the Chains. He managed to stop him in every step and made him look stupid in front of the whole world. At the same time, a young fighter called who appeared and had challenged all the art schools. The warriors of the country, and they had defeated them all because they didn't know mercy and didn't. That gave more than the teacher's school read and asked to get in confrontation with her and him. The master of the bed is his strongest student, trying to say that he escapes to how much but how many. Attack without a doubt if you showed mysterious martial skills, if you defeated them and overcome it. Before the students, and then the students of the school decided to leave it and join the school of how much because they seemed very strong, and after a long time the Master Han came and was he. True school teacher had already entrusted the bed to his provisional direction while waiting for his return of travel. Then Chains told him what happened in his absence, and the Master Han decided that you faced the school of how to take the students, and when you get down came that. It was all those who were on his way while the head of the Highland School observed the place far away, the terrible fighter, which is the most powerful fighter of the decisive country to face. They have, and at the beginning of the struggle the two men are thrown into a violent confrontation in the style of the special and unique Quanara battle, and the Master Han failed to get to why. This art was new to him, and unfortunately, the teacher Han was defeated before all the students. And he lost the struggle, and the Chains was deeply daring to see what had happened to his master, and he decided to intervene to return his right to this enemy, and then the struggle began to enter Equania. At the beginning everyone thought the Chains were zero and they didn't control the Chains. Armarsho and didn't know of the steps he had learned. The art of the deadly serpent chain surprised him all world for his bright strength and the bright speed of his movements, and the school director. The eagle understood when he was very strong and that he had to get rid of him, and finally Chains. And he removed at the speed of the light and gave honor to his master, and then all of them. Students returned to their school. When the Chains returned home he discovered that the dancing teacher had. He was forced to leave the place for mysterious reasons, but left him a book. Contain all the secrets of the art of the serpent you had to learn, and then Chains out of the home at all speed to look for him, but suddenly he found the director of the school of the eagle. That the goal was to destroy the art of the serpent and kill the master dance, and John tried to convince the Chains. That was the close friend of Rental, but the Chains was not naive enough to believe it easily. He He decided to put it on his own to test, and then the struggle begins between them at an initial level, and the chains were of a medium level compared to the teacher's John and was severely hit with. He rose again like a lion and began to use the movements that he had learned from the bet, and John was surprised by his capabilities, but finally he took over again. In the confrontation and defeat in a few seconds, and then manages to deceive Chains, and he convinced him that he was really the dance teacher's friend and asked the Chains to warn him when the rental would return from travel, and the Chains accepted their request when the Chains returned to the Fui home. Surprised to see what the book that contains the secrets of the serpent art had been broken by his Gatoy. By chance, when he comes out, he sees a serpent facing a cat and is filled with enthusiasm with the idea. Looking at the struggle between them, and took a great pleasure to the point of feeling the desire to fight with them, but suddenly he notices that the cat was gently using his holes to get to Cindy. The serpent filled that moment decided to combine the cat flu with the serpent art to discover a new secret art of the struggle, and then begins to put the bases of this art and to train on it. He hardly and over time managed to master the art of screaming the cat and acquired the skills exceptional without equals, and one day when he returned to the chain house he met the master Baiki. He appeared suddenly, and Chains was extremely worried about him and asked him the reason of his sudden disappearance, and replied to the Chains that they didn't worry about him because everything was right in this. At that time the friend of the Chains in the school had prepared you for them too, but had put poison in secret because he worked for the director of the Highland school called Gon, and unfortunately Chen and Baiki manned the deadly poison without knowing it, and then Chen went and informed Guanda. Master Baiki's return didn't know that Guan wanted to remove them completely, and when he arrived at both Guan he discovered that Bape tried to escape from the place and went away. And when Chen approached him, he was surprised that he fell into a trap. He understood that he had been brought by Guan, and then found himself in front of a Russian fighter carrying a sand samurai, able to cut anything in a few seconds, and Chen tried escape in the hope of surviving, but at a decisive time decided to use the art of the chai was broken down, thrown over the Russian fighter and removed it in the inclination of the eyes at the same time. Guan stood in front of Master Baiki after a long period of investigation and told him that he was finally finishing with the art of the serpent and deleting it completely, and then the decisive struggle began between them and him. Initially they were on both of close level, but with time Guan used the costs. It is prohibited in the arms and inflicts to dance scions mortal until it becomes extremely weak, and declared that it would be his end, and in the last second Chen appeared and he salved it and faced Guan with the truth, showing that he had made a mistake to push him to. Then Baipidio said he would flee quickly because Guan was a murderer. My Aricordia, and that I could kill him at any time, but Chen decided to sacrifice his life and face Guan until the end to protect his master Dance, save him from death, and then the final struggle began between the young man with good heart Chen and the director of the Igla Guan school that was considered as without mercy. The two men are thrown into a violent struggle, or the art of the Igla faced the art from the serpent, and to the cats flew, and the question was who would have won it, and the answer. The technique of the cat and the technique of the serpent took water to the advantage because Chen he executed an upset offensive killer that no one could stop, and with whom my fine life of the unjust Guan and the destructive art of the needle, and after having removed it. Chen's friend appeared suddenly and is tempted to attack him by surprise, but Master Ball saved him in the last second, and the traitor admitted that he had put the poison in the tissue, and unfortunately Chen and Bale began to feel the effect of poison on their stomach and suffered terribly, as if he was dead of pain, while Chen's perverse friend laughs like a crazy, thinking that the shock was that he only simulated the pain because he had made a mistake and then looked at the end of his life in a few seconds.